If 25 people had not died on Saturday night, the Luthra brothers would still be regarded as upstanding citizens of this country by their friends, their colleagues, their families, their employees, and their followers. They would still be the same young Delhi entrepreneurs who hid in plain sight, broke every rule in the law book, paid their way to profits, and basked in the glow of influence. Because that's what the paper trail tells us. Today, as NDTV broke the first images of Gaurav and Saurabh Luthra, handcuffed in the tropical paradise of Phuket in Thailand, it marked the beginning of the great unraveling of two men who thought the system was a toy and this country was their playground. Look around anywhere in Delhi NCR and you will see Gaurav and Saurabh Luthra type people, except you don't know what's really going on. It's been 5 days since the tragedy in Goa, and all we have begun to uncover is the expanding size of their wheeling dealing. NDTV has systematically exposed a web of shell companies, their own driver passed off as the club's operational head, 42 companies linked to the same address, most of them existing only on paper. These were brothers who were considered clean enough to pose with celebrities, influencers, and actors like Ori or the actor Jacqueline Fernandez, singer Biprak. Now, let's be very clear. None of these celebrities have anything to do with the corruption or criminalities that the Luthras orchestrated. The point is simple. The brothers were big enough, rich enough, and connected enough to be in the same frame as these well-known people. As India now spends precious public resources, that's right, taxpayer money, to bring the Luthras back and make them face the music, ask yourself tonight, how many seemingly upstanding wheeler dealers operate in our midst in plain sight? For every honest businessman in India, how many are like the Luthras, paying their way to profits and living life king size? What does it say about a system that allows them to sleep peacefully, show no remorse, book their tickets 90 minutes after 25 people die on their property, and then expect sympathy from the courts when all this comes crashing down? Do we blame the Luthras alone? Or do we also blame the system that enabled them? Because for a country that calls itself the world's largest democracy, with massive aspirations, the story of the Luthra brothers should terrify us. They have proved that two young men who know exactly where the cracks are can take an entire nation for a ride. And let me show you what the Luthra brothers have been claiming versus what the reality is. And this will give you a certain sense of just how disconnected they perhaps are, not only from reality, but what they're expecting people to believe of their entire charade. Just look at the facts that we've got so far. In court, they're saying, okay, in court, they're saying we are humans too. In reality, they say they ran away as the staff and guests actually died in their nightclub. In court, they're saying they were not in charge of the operations, but in reality, it was these guys who built this entire death trap. In court, they're saying, let's keep moving. In court, they're saying the liability put out on us as if we set the fire. The truth, which everyone knows, is no fire safety at the club, no fire alarms, as NDTV has reported. In court, their lawyers shamelessly claim it wasn't homicide, but death by negligence. In reality, whose job was it to ensure safety at the club? Who does the buck stop with, quite literally? They have a history of booking last-minute flights, they say. That was their excuse for booking a flight 90 minutes after their club burnt down with 25 people's lives being taken. The reality is, booked tickets, like I said, just 90 minutes after that fire, and they expect the court to believe that that is just a force of habit. They're constantly flying off at the last minute. In court, their lawyers are arguing, getting death threats on social media, boo-hoo, big deal. 25 families have lost their lives and their loved ones, and they will never have peace again. And these two cowards are crying about a little trolling on Twitter. In court, they're saying, we care about our staff. Really, really a joke if this wasn't so tragic, because the truth is they ran away to Phuket. They ran away to Phuket, a tropical beach destination when their staff, their managers, their people, their employees needed them the most. So they want the world to believe that they want to cooperate with the probe, when the reality is that their first instinct, as we all now know so well, something that's made them international celebrities, is they ran away like a pair of chickens to Phuket in Thailand. And it was NDTV that revealed every aspect of this story. From the fact that they had flown away from India, it broke right here on this show, India Matters, to the first pictures of them in handcuffs, to the blue collar notice, to everything in between. And I'm going to show you even more right after this. Terrible nightclub fire that killed 25 people in Goa on Saturday night. 3 suspended officials responsible for issuing permits and licenses to the Burt nightclub.
A massive blaze, 25 dead, and a transnational manhunt for the coward Luthra brothers, who fled the country as their staff and guests were burnt alive at their Birch Club in Goa.
The owner of this entire club has been absconding for a very long time.
NDTV has reached one of the club in the national capital, which is in Defence Colony.
Property that is owned by the Luthras, NDTV is the first channel that has managed to reach here.
Since the Goa club fire, NDTV relentlessly pursued the hunt for the Luthra brothers, Gaurav and Saurabh. Tracking the investigation and their whereabouts as the brothers evaded responsibility and arrest. Even as the system patted itself on the back with action against small fish, some hotel staff and government officials, NDTV kept the focus on the real villains of the piece, the Luthra brothers, who built the tinder box called Birch and vanished after the deadly fire. NDTV's continuous pursuit of justice for the fire victims kept the heat on the Luthras and agencies on their toes.
The Delhi-based businessmen owners of the Birch nightclub, in which 25 people were killed on Saturday night.
As the country and agencies wondered where the Luthra brothers were, NDTV was the first to report that the cowards had fled to Thailand.
Spotted at the airport in Thailand.
That news break by NDTV set the agencies in motion as Goa cops moved to get an Interpol notice against the absconders, and the MEA moved to cancel passports. NDTV is also the first network to report live from Thailand.
Phuket Immigration have told, and they had approached the immigration counter close to 11:30 Thailand time.
On Tuesday, after NDTV confirmed that the Luthra brothers were indeed in Thailand, and we showed you first images of Gaurav Luthra from the Phuket Immigration counter.
Those are the first images coming in, exclusive images here on NDTV.
On Wednesday afternoon, NDTV broke the news of Luthra's detention in Thailand, a day before other networks had any whiff of the news.
From the detention center in Phuket, Saurabh Luthra there that you can see on your screens.
As the Luthra brothers moved court for anticipatory bail, playing victims and claiming that they were in Thailand for work.
In the most cowardly fashion, hiding in Phuket in Thailand. Why are they not here in India? They clearly
NDTV burst their lies and reported that the Luthras had in fact booked their Thailand tickets just 90 minutes after the Goa club fire. So much for their claims that they cared.
90 minutes after the fire broke out, these two brothers were sitting on their laptops booking tickets.
On Thursday morning, the MEA cancelled their passports and paved the way for their detention by Thailand cops.
Now, the Goa police also asked the MEA to cancel the passports.
NDTV brought you the first images of the brothers in Thai police custody and reported live from the detention center.
Now these are the pictures, the ground pictures that we are giving you just outside the Phuket Immigration.
NDTV's relentless focus on the absconders and pursuit of justice for fire victims kept the system on the move and ensured that the Luthras land where they belong, behind bars. An NDTV Bureau report.
If you're feeling angry about the Luthras and believe they should be serving justice ASAP, please leave some space to feel a little angrier because of what I'm about to show you. These two men had 42 shell companies linked to one single Delhi address. They are the epitome of wheeling, dealing, jugadu businessmen of the kind that roam everywhere in Delhi and give the national capital and surrounding areas a terrible name for people who like cutting corners and don't like playing by the rules. 2590, ground floor, Hudson Line, Northwest Delhi. 42 companies, same directors. Now, some would say it is not abnormal to have shell companies for various kinds of tax transactions, but 42 companies with the same directors in the same address with multiple dormant entities. They claim they have outlets and properties in Phuket, but there is not even one single operational Phuket. So I am left wondering whether it is not surprising at all that these two cowards chose to book their tickets 90 minutes after the tragedy and fly straight to Phuket and not to some other place. No verified address, no customer reviews in Phuket. Here's what the documents reveal that NDTV's reporting team has accessed. Many companies, no active operations, heavy branding versus zero financial footprint. Corporate trail does not match all of these business claims. Now, I want to be very clear, viewer, even as we report this story. NDTV is a serious channel, and we believe very strongly that everyone is entitled to recourse to the law and everyone must be treated equally under the law. But two privileged businessmen who very clearly beat a hasty retreat from the country in the wake of a tragedy where they knew the buck would stop with them are expecting sympathy from the courts of law. So please permit me from being disgusted by some of the submissions that their lawyers have made in court. As a citizen, I am truly angry today, and the legal arguments and the fact that these two men deserve a legal hearing doesn't cut any ice with me, because of course they're going to get that legal hearing with the lawyers that they've been able to obtain to represent them. Joining me live now, Satya Mule is an advocate in the Supreme Court. Avishkar Singhvi is also an advocate in the Supreme Court. Thank you very much, Mr. Mule, Mr. Singhvi, for your time here on NDTV. Satya Mule, I want to come to you first. The Luthras say that they are also victims. They say that there is nothing they could have done to stop this. They say that they should also be given a hearing. They say that they went to Phuket on work. They say that they have a habit of booking last-minute flights. Almost every one of these submissions that have been made by their legal team in court in pursuance of anticipatory bail, Mr. Mule, is ludicrous. Is ludicrous, and almost factually, it can be disproven. How is this happening? How do you see this? How are they able to even say such things in court through their lawyers?
It's completely ridiculous. It's just that, they are victims of some rotten thought processes. They are demonstrating to the court that they, in first place, do not want to cooperate with the investigation, do not want to fall in line as per the requirements of the law, and now they are playing the victim card. This is absolutely unacceptable. How can they claim victims when they know that their place is on fire? They have to be present there offering cooperation if they themselves feel that they are victims. At the same time, how can they justify that they have broken laws related with environment, laws related with labor, fire safety, sound, and they also have not obtained various NOCs that are required to operate such kind of a place which has got a narrow exit. It doesn't even have a fire exit. So what kind of a victim card? There is absolutely no justification. The courts have taken cognizance that they have run away. Somebody who runs away cannot play the victim card. I'm sorry.
Avishkar, can you help us understand this? Like I said when I prefaced this discussion, to say that everybody has, is entitled to be considered by the legal system. But even a cursory look at some of the things they've said in court are plainly ridiculous. That they have properties in Phuket, which we find that they don't. That they are also victims in all of this. Can you help us understand this?
Thanks for having me on your show, Shiv. Firstly, I'd like to send my condolences to the 25 families who've lost their lives. It's absolutely unpardonable, inconsolable. No kind of public apology or no kind of national level protest would ever redeem this kind of loss for the country. It's a national loss. But I just only want to highlight and allow me to put a counterpoint without accepting or without identifying with that viewpoint, if I may say that. See, this is a case where severe lapses, there have been severe, facts, there are extraneous events, them running away. I assume all of that against them for a minute. But would this case still fall under 304 or 304 Part A is the legal question, and that is all that the court has to look at. The facts that happened after the event would not be of much relevance for one reason or the other. When the ultimate analysis of the trial goes on. For bail, yes. For bail at the moment, and I've been informed, I've not read the order. I must say that as a caveat, that I've not read the order, but the bail order, which is before us, has already said that it's been dismissed, the anticipatory bail, which was a transit bail in Delhi Rohini Court.
Yeah.
But I'm just making that clear. But however, the larger question that arises is that when you book someone for culpable homicide not amounting to murder, you have to show that they had a knowledge that their actions are likely to cause death. That is a very, very high threshold to cross in law, and most of the cases that we have seen mostly would finally get a conviction under 304 Part A. So the ultimate test would be, of course, the other provisions in law and the other proceedings in law would take their own course. Like lack of CRZ clearance would be prosecuted by the CRZ authority. The lack of license by the local panchayat. Now look at the deeper rot in the system. This highlights and this actually puts forth before us how many other restaurants in this country are running without these permissions. How many other nightclubs are running without these permissions. That is also something to be looked at. And how many of these authorities are complicit. The local authorities, the panchayat, the government, and everyone has to take blame equally. Of course, today the persons would have some sort of vicarious liability, and very seriously, and I'm not defending them for a minute.
I understand that.
Get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm only saying that we must look at it from a logic, because innocent until proven guilty.
I take your point very seriously, Avishkar. I understand. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I would only say that somehow it doesn't feel like the liability is vicarious. If the buck stopped with them, and if they were the proprietors of this place, if there are demonstrable and visible lapses that have emerged now post facto, including the fire license or any number of other NOCs that were proven to be improperly procured, if I may use that word, I am just wondering why they are not directly responsible for what happened. Satya Mule, yes, Avishkar has a point about whether culpable homicide or not, and it is on that basis that this bail has been sought and lately dismissed. But doesn't the buck stop with them?
Yes, of course. See, culpable homicide not amounting to murder has got certain ingredients for the offense to be satisfied in the eyes of law. And one of them is contributory negligence or willful disobedience of law. So if at all it is proven that whether it is CRZ, whether it is fire compliance, whether it is labor compliance, whether it is any other compliances which were not followed by these two chaps, and that has led to this kind of a fire, which would have in other case prevented, or for that matter it would have been contained to a much smaller level, then of course they are directly responsible, and therefore they are not being held or accounted for murder, but culpable homicide not amounting to murder, and this has to be definitely come out in the trial. It cannot be proven today. At this stage, they have to submit themselves to the investigating agency to establish whether there is an iota of doubt in context to their liability towards the mishap that has happened, and whether that is actually a mishap or it is a result of complete negligence and disobedience of law for which they are directly responsible.
No, and I'm glad. I'm personally glad that Avishkar raised the issue of the system and the infrastructure in Goa itself. I did a full show yesterday, Avishkar, and I will send you the link in case you missed it, which was about precisely this, about the mafias that run and practically force businesses to operate in this way. So make no mistake, this isn't about the Luthras alone, but since it is the Luthras who own that nightclub and they have suspiciously, made away from the country 90 minutes after that tragedy went down, one is constrained to wonder whether the legal system will take a dark view, as it were, of their actions after this tragedy. The fact that they went away, the fact that they're making these excuses saying that this was a work trip, the fact that they booked tickets at the last minute as a matter of habit. Well, do these things sort of come up for consideration at all?
No, well, let me make it very clear. I'm also an officer of the court.
Yeah.
I will make it very clear that the legal system will take this with utmost seriousness, and it will make sure that it reaches the end that is rightly required in this sort of case. And I mean, with the best defense lawyers, I'm sure that the judges would take this matter with the utmost seriousness and with the level of expedition that is required. Having said that, one must also remember the nature of activities in a state like Goa, which is a state where a lot of these areas are, functioning without the requisite clearances, and actually they are functioning in that shack, rural-urban mix.
Yeah.
So Goa is a special situation. I mean, Delhi would still be in a better position. And the level of compliance is here in say a Khan market as opposed to a Goa. We've all been to Goa and we've seen the level of operations that they have. They're not sophisticated at all. So one must also wonder whether the panchayat and the local authorities are granting permissions on what sort of consideration and what is the kind of application of mind at that level. That is the other point to be considered. And the level of compliance. See, when it goes from culpable death by negligence to culpable homicide, you have to look at the degree of lack of compliance. When the degree of lack of compliance is very, very high, you can possibly argue what my friend Mr. Mule has said on the show, that it may be culpable homicide not amounting to murder. But when the degree of compliance is at a level where, look, I have applied for something, but it has been granted by the authorities. So you always have a defense available that, look, the authorities ought not to have granted that. So I'm just putting all those things out.
No, that's a very important point that you make. And Mr. Mule, before I come to you, just want to point out this latest picture that we've got on our screen of Gaurav and Saurabh Luthra in Thailand with policemen and police officers who've detained them. This is the latest picture that's coming in. It's only the latest one that NDTV has put out. We've brought you, first and exclusive, all of the inputs, all of the pictures, all of the news breaks on this developing story. But Mr. Mule, coming back to you on a point that Avishkar made, if culpable homicide not amounting to murder is what this is going to be about, it's going to open an entire can of worms. I agree with him when he says that the Luthras, in whatever manner that they are liable for what happened at Birch Romeo Lane, it will open a can of worms. So many people will be directly and indirectly involved for facilitating what finally happened on Saturday night, Mr. Mule.
Well, it doesn't matter whether it is one person who is held liable for non-compliance of the law, or there are hundreds of people who are held liable for non-compliance of law. That is not a parameter to decide whether they should be held liable for, culpable homicide not amounting to murder. In fact, I'd like to point out that this is not a one-odd incident. If we just look at last 5 to 7 years, these kind of incidents are happening. Karol Bagh restaurant fire, then Delhi and Surat coaching classes fire. We have seen in Mumbai, we have seen the rooftop restaurant fire. So these are all time bombs ticking. It is a systemic failure, and the modus operandi of these people are to save cost by hook or crook. And the first thing that they try to do is to do non-compliance related with law. They try to create a structure with certain material which is of temporary nature, but highly inflammatory. They do not comply with various other regulations, including environment, fire, labor, or for that matter, taxation. And it's only about profit. the safety of the patrons is thrown to the winds. And having said this, they absolutely do not care about what happens behind their back when this kind of an incident happens. We have seen this in the past. All these incidents, the owners have always taken a shelter that this was a mishap. But eventually, the law has caught up with them.
Avishkar, final word I'll give to you. Do you want to add anything to that or rebut anything on that? Last word to you.
I'll definitely say that, we've had these incidents in the past, and we can take guidance from a lot of cases that have happened, such as the Opar or the Rajkot fire incident, or where the children died in the hospital. And we can see how the courts have laid down precedents in those cases. But, negligence is always very, very expensive, and it's dear to human lives. And it takes very little to actually avoid it. But we must look at the entire systemic change that must be implemented at a larger level, and how that is the real question to ask ourselves, and whether the authorities are really doing their job. That is what I would say as my closing comments.
All right, Avishkar Singhvi and Satya Mule, thank you very much. I agree that there's a very specific case we're talking about here, but there's a larger malaise that cannot be ignored. But the two cannot be separated, but they both must be pursued with equal vigor, and that's something we will definitely do here on NDTV. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with me.